Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Perry, and I have a real passion to help people uh, get out of the places where they're stuck, to help people change patterns. This has to do with communication, it has to do with mindset, it has to do with relationships, so many things. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because um, I watched my father, who was an orphan as a child, never really had a family to speak of, raised in back in the 40s and the 50s in orphanages and foster care. And my dad worked extremely hard to get himself out of old mindsets, whether they be poverty mindsets, whether it be uh, disconnected relationally mindsets, all of those things. So I've watched my dad in 85 years work so hard at breaking the cycle, if you will. Now, here I am at 60, and I'm enjoying a much better life than my dad did. As a child, I had a great life, much better than my dad. My kids have had a better life than I had because cycles happen. And if you're not careful, you will find yourself stuck in a cycle, whether it's a generational cycle from your past, or whether it's a cycle that you've created by your own decisions. Many times those decisions can be fueled by fear, intimidation, doubt, low self-esteem, 100 things that can cause us to fall into these cycles. Now, it's easy to blame generational cycles on our past and say, well, it's my mom and dad, they were divorced, so therefore I'm going to get divorced, or they were alcoholics and they had addiction issues, so I'm going to have addiction issues. It's easy to point the finger and blame that. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be broken, but it's easy to blame. Now, the one that we don't like to deal with is the one that we've got ourselves into, right? We get ourselves into these cycles, either something that started because of a trauma in your teen years or even your childhood, or maybe an event in college or young married life or raising kids. Who knows where your cycle starts, but then you get stuck. I have this crazy story, and honest to God, it's true. My wife and I, years ago, we had this truck and trailer, and a camper trailer, and we were going by to see some friends. And late at night, we were going to pull in beside their house, and he said, "Don't pull up next to the sidewalk because it's soft there. It's been raining a lot." He said, "Stay away from the sidewalk in the driveway, and you'll be fine." And I pulled in. It was late at night. I pull in, and so help me, if I didn't pull right up next to that sidewalk, because I was thinking, I want to be able to open my trailer door tomorrow, step right onto the sidewalk, go into the house, do breakfast or whatever we're going to do. And so help me, I pulled in, and you could just feel that truck and trailer just sink in the mud. It was horrible. So it was in this little town of Arkansas, Rector, Arkansas, maybe 500 or maybe 1,000 people. It's a tiny little town. So he calls all of his buddies. Now, this was a few years ago in the 80s, big four-wheel drives, big trucks and big burly guys driving those trucks. And he calls his buddies, it's like late at night. They all come, flying out of their yards and driveways. They can't wait to show off their truck. And they hook it up to me, that one of them hooks up his chains and they pull and nothing. I mean, they're just throwing mud and gravel everywhere, and nothing's happening. And the other one says, well, they get into this, guy thing, oh, your truck ain't nothing. Let me show you my truck. And they're thumping their chest, and the other guys, he hooks up and he's like, nah, man, it ain't happening. So both trucks literally have to hook up to the front of my truck and drag us out of that mud. Now, the reason I tell that story is there's a few things that I think are interesting, and I just want to kind of hit them quick, and then I'll come back and apply them in a few minutes. So in this story, there's several components. Number one, my truck and the trailer that I was pulling were stuck. Number two, I had to ask for some help. Number three, my friend had some people. And number four, they had some big trucks that could pull me out. And number five, those big trucks had the power to do what I needed done. So let me start by talking about being stuck. That's the first thing we want to talk about. So by nature, we all find comfort levels, sadly, in cycles. And that's where we find ourselves stuck, whether that's a mindset, a thought pattern, a cycle of emotions. Maybe it's even a physical sickness, a financial hole where you just about get out of debt and then bam, you go back into that cycle again. And many times this comes from identity issues because, like I said, we want to blame, we want to point a finger, we want to say it's not my fault, it's my place in life, it's where I'm stuck, it's just who I am. And so we have to get honest. We have to get brutally honest with ourselves. Now, we don't have trouble being honest with other people about them and their situation, especially on social media, right? Or we don't have a problem getting on social media and blasting somebody else about their situation, but don't talk about my situation. And so people that are getting stuck, people that are stuck will find themselves going through the motions, if you will. They're not really living life. They're unmotivated. They're unfulfilled. They want to change, but they fear the temporary discomfort that comes with change because change always brings pain, stress, whatever you want to stick on there, that negative part. But not only was my truck stuck, but the trailer that I pulled behind me was stuck as well. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this is I saw my dad work really hard to get unstuck so that I did not have to go through the things he went through. You have to grow. The day you stop growing is the day you die. And there's a whole lot of people that are dead and don't know it. Yeah. Nobody's informed them because they've gotten into this hamster wheel, into this cycle of just running the hamster wheel. Nothing ever changes, no new decisions, no new processes in life. And it is so important that we find people around us. Maybe it's somebody that's more adventurous. Maybe it's somebody that reads different books. Maybe it's somebody that thinks higher thoughts. And just, I heard a guy say years ago that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's true.
So find a room where there's somebody smarter and get in that room. A book club, a group of some kind, a church, small group, or, a community group. Find somewhere where you can plug in with people that think, talk, operate at a higher level. And by nature, we'll feel stupid, we'll feel ignorant, we'll feel bad because I don't want to be the dumb person in the room. Well, I got used to that when I was 7. Right? So I'm good with that. But for some people, it's not that easy. And go into a room and don't feel less about yourself. Feel hopeful about yourself that I haven't stopped learning. I'm still growing. I'm still developing. I'm still rising up. I was a slow learner, couldn't read until I was in the 7th grade. I got sent to the end of the hall. I very seldom got recess because I was always frustrated with life because I couldn't read, I couldn't do math facts, so therefore I was always in trouble. I was bullied really bad. And so I just found myself in this cycle, but I worked really hard. And I'll tell you more about this as we go, but I worked really hard to break that cycle so that my kids, the trailer that I'm pulling, the next generation, did not have to go through that. And my goal is, as I was in a better situation than my father, my boys were in a better situation than I was. My dream is that my grandkids will be in a better situation than my kids are. So when I talk about getting unstuck, don't just make it about you. Think about what you're pulling behind you, the next generation. Now let's talk about being intentional, because this is very important. It is very important that you become intentional. This is called asking for help. You can't just accidentally get unstuck. You don't just pull in with your truck and trailer, get stuck in the mud, and then the next day you put it in drive and you just pull out of the yard. It just doesn't happen. You have to get intentional. And this can be extremely challenging, and especially depending on the mindset that you're in.
In this life of ours, we're not meant to do it alone, and that you needed to reach out and use your resources in both of those stories. And I think it just highlights how we too have to use the resources around us, that we're not meant to do this alone. And sometimes that means we have to kind of diminish maybe the pride inside of us that says, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want people to know I have these problems. I don't want to reach out for help, because somehow we see it as a weakness, but really kind of challenge ourselves to kind of let that go and get the help we need, because we all need it at one point in our lives. And I feel like too, sometimes some of us feel like we're a burden on somebody when we reach out for help. And I just had to encourage a friend recently that, when we're the ones that get to help somebody, it doesn't feel like a burden. So even though in our mindset, we think we're burdening someone else by reaching out for help, we're actually kind of helping them and giving them the gift of being able to be the one who can help somebody else.
Now, I don't mind to talk about my personal life because it's the life I know best. Probably 20 years ago, I went through a severe time of anxiety, had bouts with panic. I'd literally lay in the bed and shake, insomnia. I literally could not process life. I was completely overwhelmed. We were on a family trip, my wife, myself, and my 3 boys. We stopped in Cincinnati, coming up from the south. We stopped in Cincinnati, pulled into a store, and my battery in my car blew up, literally just exploded. It was crazy. And so we get the boys out. They're itchy. They've been on the road all day in the car. Sharon finds a place to sit. And for 3 hours, I literally walk around trying to figure out what to do. Now, I really only had to do something simple. All I had to do was get a battery for my car, put it in, and get back on the road. The problem is the Walmart was at the next exit, and we were in a snowstorm, and I could not figure out how to get from where I was to the Walmart in the snowstorm and back again. It took me 3 hours to come up with a solution. You know what the solution was? Call a taxi. Now, how easy. That is such a no-brainer. This was 20 years ago. Nowadays, you call an Uber. You call an Uber, you call a taxi, you're like, I'm here, I need to go to Walmart, get a battery, come back, put it in the truck, and put it in the car, and I'm ready to go home. Here's what happens is, if we're not careful, we will get mentally stuck. We will get mentally stuck, and we will not have the ability to process. Years ago, I read a story of a group of people that got stuck in a demilitarized zone, right? They're between 2 enemies. And they're like, what do we do? If we go this way, we're probably going to get killed. If we go this way, we're probably going to get killed. And here's the question they ask. They were sick. They were without food. They were in a bad situation. It's what Martin Luther King Jr. called the paralysis of analysis. I don't know if that was an original to him, but in one of his famous speeches, he talks about the paralysis of analysis. And if you're not intentional, you'll get stuck in that I don't know what to do. And this group of people that was stuck in this demilitarized zone with enemies on both sides, thinking if we go this way, they're probably going to kill us. If we go this way, they're probably going to kill us. And here's the question they ask. Will we sit here till we die? If we go this way, we might die. If we go this way, we might die. But if we sit here, we're definitely going to die. I want to encourage you, don't die in your dilemma. Don't get stuck. As hard as it is, as difficult as it is, ask for help. Now, I talk to people all the time, and one of the things I tell people is, if when people come to me and say, here's my problem, here's what I think might be the solution, and I tell this to people all the time: pick your heart. If you're going to get divorced, it's going to be hard. If you're going to stay married, it's going to be hard to heal the marriage. Okay? If you're staying in the alcoholism or the addiction, it's going to be hard. If you break the addiction, it's going to be hard. You just have to pick your heart. So I want to encourage you, be intentional. Now, number 3, this is so important, is choosing your friends. We are living, and I don't need to tell you this, you know this. We are living in a crisis of loneliness. It's common knowledge. Newscasts are talking about it, articles are written about it, stuff is being posted online about it. We are living in a crisis of loneliness. COVID crisis didn't help. Phones and other screens don't help. The divisive spirit of the age in which we're at, where people are always pitting one another against another, whether it's politics or religion or families or, ideas on how to get whole and well. There's always this side. Now, would you agree, because you're the mental health expert here, would you agree that we are in a crisis of loneliness?
Yes, I would. And I would not call myself the mental health expert.
Hey, in this group, in this chat, you are definitely the expert here. If it's me and you, you're the one, not me.
That's funny.
But would you say that there is a crisis of loneliness?
I would, and statistics will say that as well, that we're more connected with people technologically than ever before, but we're more lonely than ever before. And I think it's that disconnect of, like, sometimes we feel like because we're connected on social media that we're connected, but that's like a false connection. It's always that kind of that false perspective. On top of not really communicating face to face, I hear also that youth are struggling with being able to have that face to face connection, because it's very easy to type something up on a screen versus having that in-person conversation with someone is totally different. The other element of that we don't often think about is the piece of, within the social media realm, a lot of people get consumed with not only comparing themselves to others and their life to others, but wanting the approval of others. So it's like, ooh, I posted this. How many likes did I get? How many people responded? But I think sometimes we can get caught up in that. And I think we have to kind of catch ourselves and think, why do I need all this approval? Is there something deeper that I need to work on, because I'm seeking this approval from others so much and feel like I need that?
Wisdom calls us to connect with others. Healthy friendships, surrounding yourself with people that can help you, as opposed to surrounding your people with that can't help you. Look, you cannot be free from a situation with the same people that you got into the situation with. I hope that makes sense. You have to elevate yourself to a new group of people to raise your mind, your mindset, to raise your emotional levels.
Right. I love that. That's the other thing I'm always try to encourage when I would work more with young people, is that they're in an interesting time in history that they know a lot more than adults in many areas, that adults are coming to them for information. But I think the hindrance, or like the caution they have to be careful of, is that they don't get caught up in thinking adults don't have things to teach them. With any of us at any age, I think we just have to really be humble enough to say, I can learn something from this person.
So you have to put yourself in a position to say, I'm going to find a group of people. An old adage says it like this: A threefold cord is not easily broken. There's another old saying that I read years ago that one can put 1,000 to flight, but two can put 10,000. And what that's talking about is the idea of connecting yourself with people that are healthy, whole, strong, thoughtful, aware, and by elevating yourself to a new level of people that you surround yourself with, now you have a greater chance of going forward, okay? Because your friends determine your future. And that is so important. The people you surround yourself. My dad used to say, son, I'm not worried about you. It's those kids you hang with that make me nervous. And so I encourage you, find your friends. Now, it's one thing to surround yourself with peers, even elevated peers, peers who think at a different level, peers who process life at a higher plane. But there's another level of connection that needs to be made. And this is where many times, especially it seems to me, that this happens in peer relationships where when there is no sage, there's no person of wisdom, there's no parent, there's no leader, there's no mentor, that everybody's getting advice from this level, and we all have the same knowledge. And somehow we think we can go forward with the knowledge at our peer level. Number 4 is you have to find leadership that will pull you up or be an advisor, a sage, a person of wisdom, a mentor, a teacher. So when I was in the 7th grade, I had a teacher who took an interest in me. They only passed me from grade 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 just to move me along because nobody knew what to do with me. You know, this was back in the 70s. Education was nothing like it is now, early 60s, 70s. I'm just struggling to get through every day, you know, at school. But in the 7th grade, I had a teacher take interest in me, and he taught me to read. Now, here's the crazy thing, is he gave me this little book. Back in the day, I don't have one close here, but it's just a little, they used to call them pocket books. They were little paperback books about this big, you know, not real big. And he gives me this book and he says, Jonathan, I need you to read this and tell me if the whole class should read this or not. It wasn't very thick. I doubt if it was 100 pages. I still remember the book. I remember details of the book. It took me 3 months to get through that book, word by word, just laboriously reading, just trying to figure out what was saying and probably missing half the words. So finally, I complete the book. I go back to him. And when I say I couldn't read, I mean, it was just, I was probably reading at about a 1st or 2nd grade level. I mean, it was just so hard. So I go back to him, I hand him the book, I give him the whole verbal book report because my writing was horrible. I couldn't write, I couldn't spell. So I give him a verbal book report, and I never heard another word about that book. It never came up again. The class didn't read it, but what it did for me is it put a hunger in me to read. I had somebody above me that saw something in me, a pastor. Come on, you might need to find a pastor, a spiritual leader, a counselor, an advisor, a mentor, somebody that will see who you are and the potential that you have that can create a vacuum. Now, here's what's so cool. That teacher, his name is Roger Hoagland, and I give him credit all the time. That teacher now lives in Israel as a missionary. And in October, I'm going to spend a week with him. We're still connected. Now that happened 45 years ago when I was 13 or 14 or 15, and we've stayed connected because he made a difference in my life. Now, I don't know who you're looking to. If you're looking to the housewives of your TV show, if you're looking to some movie star, if you're looking to some talk show guru, if you're looking to celebrity, if you're looking this is so important because we're in such a media-driven, tech-driven, screen-driven world. If you're looking to a screen to find that person, it's never going to happen. You've got to find that person you can physically sit down with and have a cup of coffee. You've got to find that leader, that teacher, that advisor that you can walk into their office and sit down and say, here's where I'm at, here's why I'm stuck, here's what I'm dealing with, what's my next step? Now, I want to wrap this up. And one thing I didn't tell you is that truck and trailer that I had, and I was stuck in the mud. And they were pulling and grinding their gears and throwing mud and gravel everywhere trying to get me out. What I didn't have the guts to tell them is that the whole time I had my emergency brake on. I'm telling you, I had the emergency brake on and they were out there just fussing and grinding those gears and trying and and I had the emergency brake on. Now, here's the greatest challenge of getting unstuck, is if you're not careful by nature, just without even being aware of it, you will have an emergency brake on the mindset, on the situation, on the marriage, on the child rearing, on the addiction. You will have just because, here's why. So that truck had a horrible transmission, and I put it in park, and sometimes it'd go in park and sometimes it wouldn't, and I'd put it in drive and sometimes it wouldn't go in drive. But I had a habit of always pushing the emergency brake when I stopped. And then when I would get ready to go, I would pull that emergency brake. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is so important is by nature, you will have a tendency, just every time you go through this cycle and you see like, hey, I'm about to go out of this cycle, just by nature, you will push the emergency brake because it's easy to stay stuck where it's comfortable. I meet so many people who have become functional in their dysfunction. People who have become comfortable in their craziness. And I don't mean that lightly. I'm just talking about in their chaos. Maybe that would be a better word. Comfortable in their chaos. People who have become settled and they don't really want to go anywhere or do anything else. They're just like, I know how to handle this. I know how to deal with this. And if I pull that emergency brake and I get unstuck, now I've got to figure out how to handle a whole nother set of problems. I want to challenge you. Maybe it's encourage you. Maybe put what my wife says, put a thumb in your back, just a little nudge to pull that emergency brake lever. Take a chance. Check yourself before you blame anybody else, before you settle back in and say, this is just my life. This is what I'm destined to be. This is how I'm supposed to live. This is how life is meant to work. Before you do any of that, look around and see what your future could look like. I mean, lift up your eyes and look into your future and say, you know what? My marriage can be healthy. I can break this addiction. I don't have to stay stuck in this depression. I don't have to just remain as I am where I am because my future is better than my past. I'm just telling you. Okay, that's my thoughts for the day. I hope that helped you.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and that was so well done.